see the Power Blast as being typically covering a lot of area, or typically, typically high impact or anything like that?
No, it would be the way I was visiting it is kind of like almost like a phaser from Star Trek.
Right.
A concentrated beam of energy that wouldn't cover a big area.
Right.
It would just pound its target.
Yeah. Now, it's a pretty big chapter. But if you scroll through it, you'll eventually get to the part that's talking about advantages and limitations. And you can enjoy this as part of your reward.
There you go.
What you're going to see are some pretty interesting ideas about advantages. One of them in particular is called expanded scope. Instead of like buying more flight, what you do is you buy the advantage expanded scope, and now your flight is global.
Almost like mega scale?
Yeah. And there's several different, so one is regional. One is just ordinary, right? So you get flight, it means you can fly around right here. You're basically, you're a car. If you get regional flight, then like the whole metropolitan area, you could say, okay, I'm flying over there, and within, if not too much time, we figure you arrive. And we don't have to clock you. You fly there because that's what you can do in, a few segments. And then you can jump it up. You can jump it up to, different, you can go stellar, you can go cosmic with it. And so it applies to different forms of travel, and it applies to different forms of awareness. So if you want to be a dimensional character, you just basically get different kinds of travel, different kinds of awareness, and give it the dimensional scope.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's less about magnitude, it's less about degree and more about kind.
So you could have like a teleport with a dimensional scope, and you thought you could teleport to different dimensions.
There you go. Yeah. The idea being that let's put all this shit right in the reach of a starting character, because that's who your character is. That's what you do. And I've never seen it as a quantitative shift of, I don't know of any character who's defined as just flying around and then just gets faster and faster and faster until now they can fly to a different planet. I just don't. They kind of have that in the original rules with faster than light travel.
Yeah.
And so I decided to think about that and just really shift it out. And I was really I wanted to be able to make up Doctor Strange without just ass pulls. And also I got to thinking about the original Doom Patrol. I don't know if you know them very well.
Not very. I've just heard about them.
Yeah, most people know the Grant Morrison version in the 90s. The original Doom Patrol was a kick-ass 60s comic. And one of its characters, Negative Man, could, for 1 minute, basically he had global flight. He could just go anywhere. And it's pretty... I wanted to make the original Doom Patrol as viable characters, and I found it interesting. I had to break a couple of... They all broke the right way, and then they made a ton of other characters possible for me to do this. So I was kind of pleased with that. So anyway, if you look at the advantages, you'll see some familiar ones and you'll see some unfamiliar ones. We no longer have killing attacks. What you have are a number of advantages that you would put on Blast. And in fact, you can even put them on other things like Flash and stuff like that, which is really nasty. One is that if it doesn't do body damage, you can get an advantage that makes it do body damage, like a Flash. So now you do Flash, but it also does body damage. And so now if it does body damage, either by default, like a Blast, or by the use of that advantage, then the question is, do normal defenses stop it? And if it's severe, then normal defenses won't stop the knockout. What they used to call no normal defense. If it's piercing, then normal defenses won't stop the body.
Oh, okay.
But those are separate. If you want the true champion's killing attack,
you have to buy a bunch of stuff on it.
It's gonna you can do it. You're just gonna have to pay through the nose, because really having both the stun and the body and that much body, 3d6, come on,
yeah,
coming in on you with a single attack for that many for those points, basically you just outpowered everything in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just basically knocked it back into the same scale of effectiveness for the points and modularized its different details. So you can still do it, but if you want something like that, that's going to be a very defining feature of your character.
Yeah, as it should be, and it should be expensive. It's very effective.
Yeah, that's the idea. So then a couple other things you'll notice is that you can't buy down endurance cost very easily. There's no way.
Plus one advantage.
Yeah, and there's no charges. None of that limited number of uses crap. That was always ridiculous. I can use it 16 times a day, and it costs me no endurance, and that's supposed to be cheaper. It's like, come on. So how do
you do, just aside from that, how do you simulate a weapon with limited ammunition?
Burnout of the severe kind. There's burnout mild, which means you just have to do something and then it'll work again. Mm-hmm. And then there's burnout severe, which is that if it kicks in, you're fucked. This thing isn't going to work until you get to it later.
So if it runs out of ammo, it's not because it run out of ammo.
Yeah. So if you wanted, you could. There's a few other things you can toss in there. There's a few limitations you can, depending on how you want it to run out. There's also things like the constraint, which is a limited version of the power. In terms of its ordinary mechanics, the ordinary mechanics are constricted. Like if I'd use that in one of the example characters for a flight that can't drop below a certain amount. They have to go half speed or higher. They can't fly slow. And so that's constrained. Mm-hmm. Then there's limited, or not limited, there's conditional, which means it only will or won't work given a certain thing going on. Yeah. The big thing there is that it can't be something under your control. You can't say...
Otherwise it wouldn't be a limitation.
Right. And then there's another one called tricky, which is that it will go after things you don't want it to if you don't make your control roll. So there's all these kind of nuancy limitations about how it relates to you, and you can find a particular combination of them that works really well for how you want your weapon to run out. Mm-hmm. In practice, very few players actually want their weapons to run out.
Yes,
they want the character to worry about it. They want the character to worry about it. They don't want to worry about it. Mm-hmm. So, that's if that's the case, then we're just talking about a special effect. Just have your character look at the gun and go, getting low. Oh shit. And if you want to put a little teeth into it, then just give it burnout, which is even more fun because it's a roll. Mm-hmm. You can't say, you're like, you never say I've got one left. You say, I hope I have one left. That's way more fun. You can have one of them apply to flight or another apply to the power blast or something that applies to the whole thing.
The blast, I think, would just be probably a regular. I don't think it would have anything special about, as in it would be the equivalent of a normal blast in the...
There's always tricky.
Let's see, tricky. That disadvantage you mentioned.
Well, limitation, yes.
Limitation. Let me take a little look at that. I'm thinking for the flight, probably regional scope.
Ooh, okay.
You can actually fly fairly well.
Yeah. Well, the idea being that your character could just zip anywhere in the DC area and the surroundings pretty quick.
Yeah. fairly quickly. Yeah, she can go faster than a car, and there's nothing in her way effectively. Right. So that would be quick. As far as let me try and find. I'm trying to find Tricky. Tricky's trick. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
It's Tricky. Power quest. Focus.
Applying it to a blast is a little dangerous because that means somebody's going to get shot that you don't want to shoot.
Yeah, that I don't think that would fit.
Okay, that's fine. You could see how a villain version of your character, that would be perfect for her, though, because she's struggling with controlling the cosmic power, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, as when she first gets it, yeah, but for playing it in the regular game, that wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, we'll save that for the flashback. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what that would be for. Let's see what kind of limitation would actually make sense.
And when all is said and done, let's take the character and see how much she is built on, not counting any limitations. Take that number and put it over the real number. Take a ratio. I usually multiply it by 100 just because it's easier to say. You don't have to say point. Right? And you have a max. It's 119. And that's fixed. You are not allowed to go over 119 for your ratio. And you will suddenly discover that many, many, many Hero System fans are now calling for my head on a plate. Right? And there's a reason for this. I should also tell you something. Supervillains in this game are recommended to have more points than the heroes and higher ratios.
So they're unbalanced characters.
Right.